Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV. I am one of your co-founders, Kimberly Calhoun, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce to you one of Pod TV's number one watched financial TV shows, The Wall Street Hacker. The Wall Street Hacker is actually no one other than Peter Bennett, who received his bachelor's in economics at UCLA. Then he went to Florida to receive his law degree. And from there, he went all the way up to New York University, where he received his MBA in economics. And today and he spent 14 years working in the Wall Street sector. So today, he is taking all of this wonderful expertise and knowledge that he has gained over the years and sharing it with all of us, so that we know how to better invest what we have to protect ourselves a little bit better during this huge economic, and I'm not even going to call it a storm. It is the biggest tornado we have ever had here in the United States. And everyone, please join me in welcoming Peter Bennett.
No, thanks, Kim. Nice introduction.
Hi, Peter. All right, I'm going to let the world just listen to you, and I'm going to back out.
Okay, very good. We'll see you during the panel discussion. So it is a crazy kind of time in a lot of ways. So welcome. You can catch a new Wall Street Hackers most Thursdays and Saturdays, depending on your distribution channel. But we're going to be off next week for Thanksgiving. So November 30th, that week, we'll be back for quite a few weeks until Christmas time. Then maybe take another couple weeks off. So the markets, I had been saying for about a year and a half, the market was delusional about interest rates, a soft landing. And then I said they maybe moved from delusion to confusion, but I'm back to delusion, because now the market is so many financial powers and brokers are saying, well, rates are going to decrease any day now. I'm kidding, but they're saying, well, next year we're expecting rate increases. As a matter of fact, the futures market for rate increases and decreases is saying half a point decrease next year. UBS says they expect to see the Fed funds rate dropping below 3% by the end of the year. It's around 5 now, 5 something. I think it's 5.5, 5.2. And Goldman Sachs is optimistic, and it doesn't see it getting below 4. So just like on the way up, the market kept saying it can't go this high. It's going to drop in the fall. It's going to drop. No, this is not probably going to happen, because inflation fight is a very difficult fight for the governments to make. So and by the way, the CPI report did come in this week, and it was better than expected. It was reasonable and in the right direction for what it's worth, but I'll tell you why I don't believe it. It was 3.2% year over year, with 0.2% for the month and on core CPI, and 4% year over year. So these numbers were moving in the right direction. But here's my 7 reasons why I don't think that it's going to happen the way the market is saying it. And if the market is wrong and is pricing in this, soft landing and rates are coming down and everything's going to be great, then the market's probably not moving up. And my actual forecast for next year and probably years to come is stagflation and a very flat market. I don't think, you're going to have to be in the right places to make money. It's going to be very important to be in the right places. So the 7 reasons why I think that it's going to be higher for longer, I'll just say, is number 1, Fed Chairman Powell said higher for longer on interest rates. He's not even sure if he's going to have another increase or not. And several other members of the Fed said this week that they expect rates to stay high and might even go longer, maybe. So, the market is not believing the Fed, and they haven't for a long time. Number 2, there was a study that we've cited before in 16 countries when rates went over 6% and unemployment was below 4%. It took about 10 years. It actually took 10 point something years to bring inflation down. So it's a long battle. Generally, history shows that in every of those 16 countries. Now, some of them may be correlated, but there's no evidence that inflation just turns around on a dime. Number 3, a very key point that we emphasize in the show is energy prices. So energy prices tend to drop in the fall and in the spring. Why? It's not driving season. It's not the cold of winter. So the problem is that right now the energy prices are, under control. So I'm not surprised in October that that's not contributing. But the problem is we have long-term structural problems with energy. The energy companies are putting in less than 50% of what they used to put in up to 2015. USAC, a company that we own for a long time, should have held a little longer, but did really well with it. They said in the conference call they believe that there has to be 40% more investment, 40% more capital from the energy oil and gas companies just to maintain production where it is. And worldwide demand is still going up. People think, oh, solar and wind, no way. Solar and wind are increasing, but so is demand from developing countries. So there's an energy problem, and there's probably going to be shortages down the road worldwide. Also, energy companies are putting in 10% of their budgets into environmental projects like carbon sequestration. That's money not going to oil fields. Also, they're being very cautious with their capital because if they know that maybe in 20 years, theoretically, they won't have demand, although all forecasts I see, EIA and International Energy Agency, they all say that there's going to be more demand for oil and gas, but they're being cautious, which makes sense. Number 4 reason, unemployment. So unemployment went down up from 3.2 to 3.8 to 3.9 in October, month over month. So it's like, okay, so that's not great news. It's okay news. It's going in the right direction, but it's still under 4. There are 9.6 million unfilled jobs in America. So little percentages, the market's overreacting to that. It's going to take a lot of unemployment to get people to move to these jobs. And the U.S. job market is not going to be satisfied with, inflation in that sector isn't going to be under control until more people are employed, fortunately, and fill in those jobs, or, there's a whole shift. It has to be a dramatic shift. Number 5, rents follow property prices, housing prices, with about a 9-month lag. And the Fed knows this. And according to the National Mortgage Professional, year-over-year housing prices are still up 4.5%. So rents are probably still going up. It's also now very expensive to own a home. So that will drive rents up too. It's actually much cheaper right now to rent than buy. So that tells you where the shift is going to be. Then, of course, the U.S. government and many countries in the world are just printing money left and right wildly, particularly now, in addition to all the other deficits, unfunded liabilities for Medicare and huge 33 trillion just on the books for the U.S. Military spending is going to drive inflation. That is inflationary. So there's a lot of geopolitical issues there. And finally, if you don't believe all that news and studies, take a look at the bond market. For a long time, the bond market was acting as if inflation won't be here a long time. But now, today, you can get, let's say, a 30-year treasury at 4.7% and change, which is not a bad investment in a Roth IRA, or particularly, or maybe an IRA, but you can't have it all in there because of minimum distribution rules. But the point is, the bond market is saying we're giving a high rate. If they really believed that rates were coming down that fast, I don't think you could get 4.7, or it's a great opportunity. So all these things say there's issues and they're far from over. And the only thing I believe that will drive rates down is when we go into a real recession, unfortunately, because that's what it's going to take now, because it's going to have to be a reversal in so many things direction. And that's not going to be received well by the stock market either. So interesting stories of the week. We always do the 5 most interesting stories. And 3 of them actually relate to finance this week. Sometimes not at all, but this week, a lot of financial stories that were interesting too. Number one, there's a lot of developments in tech, which has been driving the market, the Miracle 7 companies particularly, which say that possibly tech may be subject to a lot of risk. And that's one sector I loved for years, but this year I'm very reluctant now because of the high valuations. And also I think there's more risk than the market is pricing in. So first of all, Barron's had a story 2 weeks ago about the fact that the cloud may be largely moving to laptops because AI laptops can do the work of the cloud more securely, more affordably, and more efficiently than the cloud. So the assumption is, the cloud's everything, and Microsoft and Amazon and Google are going to keep making money in the cloud. But if laptops prove to be what they were talking about, then a lot of cloud business is going to move to smaller servers and laptops for cost and efficiency, and that's not built into tech, believe me. A second story, which also is a threat to tech, big tech, and these are priced for a fair amount of perfection, to say the least. So this is a story. Google and Meta should be on the hook for at least $14 billion per year to news outlets based on ad revenue generated by their search traffic, according to a study by Columbia University that just came out. The researchers determined that Facebook should be paying publishers $1.9 billion per year for content. Google should pay between $10 and $12 billion per year. These numbers are not going to bankrupt these companies, but that would be a big hit on the bottom line for these companies. And there's been a lot of efforts by lawmakers in the US, Canada, and other countries to enact legislation that would require them to share with the publishers. As a matter of fact, California particularly also voted to advance the California Journalism Preservation Act, which would require a usage fee to journalists. Meta in August pulled their content from news content from platforms in Canada in reaction to a similar law. So there's a big trend for this, and it's probably fair. It's like you're taking all our news content and not paying us. So these fees could be very dramatic, and that's probably not built into the pricing either. Interesting story 3. This one is politics purely, and it will relate to our panel discussion indirectly. And our panel discussion will be about a nation divided, and many nations divided actually. But number 3 is, so 2 head Hamas bosses are worth an estimated $4 billion each. And political bureau leader Marzak, I guess it is worth $3 billion. So $4 billion, $4 billion, and $3 billion for the leaders of Hamas, and their people are starving. And they live in a lap of luxury, actually, at a Four Seasons, I believe, in Qatar. And so do these people really care about their people? That's a great question. Again, we'll get into that indirectly a little bit for those people who are supporting Hamas. We'll get into that. Number 4, interesting story, most interesting. So the Pentagon's UFO chief is going to step down next month after saying that several reported sightings of flying objects over U.S. are either the work of foreign nations or aliens. He actually said that he would prefer the latter scenario. So he would prefer aliens flying over than foreign nationals. 2 points. One, has he ever watched a movie at all? I mean, did you ever watch Independence Day or The Day the Earth Stood Still? I mean, if they're aliens, then we're ants to them if they can travel trillions of miles to get here. And it could be a lot more dangerous than foreign powers. So that seemed unrealistic. But the other thing is, Wall Street hackers discuss this all the time. I never believed aliens are visiting the planet because it takes trillions of miles to travel between stars. The nearest star is 5.8 trillion miles to the Earth, outside of the sun, of course. And so if you were on a planet in some other solar system or galaxy, you wouldn't even know which direction to travel. So what do? Travel 5 trillion miles one way, 5 trillion the other? It's not likely. It's pretty much impossible. Interesting story number 4. So the New York Times, possibly the most destructive and inaccurate paper in the U.S. I really have a lot of beef against them. They refuse to report stories that are important. They basically run their own narratives. So they had a story attacking the rich, basically, as they often do. As this quote said, it's an article of faith among Times journalists that privilege, no matter how hard earned, is suspect at best and colonialist, predatory, racist, sexist, and criminal at worst. So they're anti-capitalism, basically, or anti-wealth. But it's ironic, and it's probably jealousy, too, for a lot of them. But so New York is losing a lot of financial power. They've lost 10 billionaires, in the last 4 years. 10 billionaires have moved out. Now you'd say, oh, they're just billionaires, but they're losing millionaires, they're losing billionaires, they're losing financial firms. For so many reasons, poor government, but New York State relies on the top 1% of taxpayers for 42% of tax receipts. And their highest tax rate, by the way, is 14.8% in the city. So you can knock the rich, but New York City could be in big trouble down the road. And they're already facing problems with immigrants, where they're talking about a 5 to 15% cut in budgets, which is huge for New York because they're usually increasing it. So there's a lot of threats to quality of life and what will happen in New York. Things do change in cities like what happened in Detroit for a long time. Finally, this one gets back to the markets and oil. So according to BCA research report, they actually expect Brent crude, the benchmark internationally, to average $118 a barrel in 24. UBS Global Wealth Management sees Brent moving higher to $90 to $100. It was around 80 recently, in the low 80s. So if this happens, that gets back to what I'm saying. How's inflation going away? If energy prices start pushing everybody back towards I need to raise my prices because my costs are going up. And this is, again, similar to the 70s when energy drove a lot of inflation. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll talk about the investment of the week and our panel discussion. I'll see you soon. Okay, so what to do? It's the same for 2 years now. Love energy and pipelines, and that's another pick. It's actually an increase in my pipeline allocation to midstream pipeline. Own energy, it's one of the safest sectors, and also whatever allocation you have to stocks should be in dividend stocks, because we have charts that show that over the last 50 years up to about 2022, dividend stocks outperform regular stocks in the S&P 500 by double or triple, even on dividend growth stocks. So that's a place to be. And also, I suggest being defensive. There's no guarantees. I'm about to give you the disclosures anyway when we talk about the investment of the week. But nobody knows anybody. Nobody can know, because if you knew 100%, then it would be easy, right? You just make money. It'd be like you go to Vegas and you know whether it's going to be red or black. So if there's no risk, then you have a CD, and then there's a risk of inflation. Anyway, so investment of the week, disclosures. This is for entertainment only, no guarantees, only our opinions, and consult your financial advisor. So I've mentioned this before, but this is one of the few stocks I still love. At one point, I had suggested up to a portfolio of up to 50 stocks, but right now it's thin, the model portfolio, because there's just so much risk in so many industries and companies, and things are changing. So the best opportunities, I think, are pipelines. That's the biggest allocation. I'm about 29% energy. EPD, I've mentioned this before, it's Enterprise Product Partners. Previously was 3%, then 3.5%, now moved to 4%. The MLPs, generally midstream MLPs, most years, other than a brief period of, well, about 4 years or so, 5 years, when oil prices almost crashed, but they would have adjusted to that too. But they're defensive, but they usually get about a 17% return. And I believe, as they've been doing very well in the last few years, they're going to continue with that historical return, which is phenomenal. High dividends, I believe utility-like safety, and you can't get that anywhere else. So I believe, in terms of other sectors, are very hard. EPD's performance, by the way, since 1977, they have outperformed the SPY. I think it was SPY weighted on the equal weighted on the chart. I'm not sure, but either way, it was either SPY or SPY rated by 5 times. So according to this chart, the SPY went up about 5 times. EPD went up 25 times since 1997. And you've been getting dividends if you owned it all along. I wish I'd owned it that long. Also, they have huge amounts of projects that are going to come into fruition. They just said that in 25, 26, and 27, they believe that a lot of these projects are going to be completed, and that they've already reduced their leverage, and they've also said that they have bought back a lot of shares. So they expect to be raising the dividends very likely. And it already has a 7.7% yield, which is not bad. It's tax preferred if you own it outside an IRA in many ways. You have to look up MLPs. The price to cash flow is phenomenal. It's 7.2x, which means they have a 13.8% free cash flow yield. Their debt to assets is low. And so these numbers are all with the projects all being built. So that just adds to the pie. Okay, panel discussion of the week. Question is, can a nation or nations, hi, Kim.
Hi, Peter.
Can a nation or nations, and we could be talking about the United States or other countries, because a lot of countries in Europe and other countries around the world have a lot of division inside. Can a nation or nations that are divided survive? Background. So some people who watch the show obviously are religious and Christian, and others aren't. But for the first time, I'm going to quote the Bible, because in Matthew 12:25, Jesus said something wise. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, even if you don't believe in Christianity. Yes. And he said, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and each city or house divided against itself shall not stand. So that is the question of the week. Is that true? The U.S. and the world politics are as divided as any times. There have been other times that they've been very divided too, but it's very divided. There's an almost equal split in the United States between, those who believe in basically Democratic policies and Republican policies. This is due to a lot of factors, the division. Number one, the media. We're in the information age, so everybody has their own opinion. They get it, but they also get their information from different sources. So if you watch Fox Business, which I watch a lot, or maybe Fox News, which I watch occasionally, you hear a totally different story than if you watch CBS or NBC or CNN. Totally different. You wouldn't even think it's the same news cycle. But the worst thing is, I say Fox Business slants things rightward, but I think it's terrible what the left side does, because they won't report on a lot of stories at all. They just don't cover it. Stories that have to be covered. So anybody, I would say, watch both at least to balance it out and say, oh my gosh, how did I not know this? This is how I started doing it. I watched both sides. Also, the parties are very split. You have very powerful forces in the Republican Party who are moving it right, who are more of a minority but have power. And then on the left, you have the progressives who are very left and very radical. I mean, and so that divides people, because how can you meet in the middle when people are like extreme right or extreme left? There is no middle there, really. And a perfect example is Israel and the current conflict. So this just shows you how misinformed people can be. Large amounts of citizens in the United States, and I blame the media largely and politics, the politicians, who are extreme, are supporting Hamas. They're not just supporting Palestine, they're supporting Hamas. Now, number one, Hamas is led by a bunch of billionaires who don't seem to do anything for their own country. Israel has not run Gaza for years. It's Hamas that has messed the place up. If their people are poor, maybe it's because a bunch of billionaires are running it and don't care. Also, perfect example is, so Israel just offered food and water for humanitarian purposes to Hamas to, bring trucks into Gaza. So Hamas said only 400 trucks. They wouldn't let all the trucks in because they want their people to be suffering for political reasons. That's all they seem to care about. They don't care about their people. Number three, Israel offered fuel to keep the hospital running in northern Gaza. Hamas said, no, we don't want it. It's all about politics to them. Do they not know that?
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Because I want to answer your question with just a question real quick.
Sure.
Because I think that we are divided, but we don't get down to the root of the problem or understand. They're at war to begin with and have been for a very long time, just like
Sure.
we have with our Democrat and Republican. You just sat here and told me that they're worth billions of dollars and living in a life of luxury in Qatar. Well, if those leaders are there, why is Israel blowing up Gaza trying to kill the leaders of a terrorist when they're living, if we know for a fact, they're living in Gaza in a life of luxury.
But Kim, there's a lot of leaders.
And I want to ask one more question, okay?
Sure.
If you're at war, would you allow anyone in your country to receive anything of liquid form of any kind? It could be a bomb. It could be, the Trojan horse filled with, people who are going to come in and kill you. So you don't know everything they're going on, and we don't know. We don't.
Wait, Kim.
But I do know that Christians live in Palestine, in Gaza.
True.
Christians live there because they were allowed to convert to Christianity without being killed. You can't do that under the Torah, okay? You can't do that because in the Jewish law, which
can I finish, Kim? Let me finish, and then I'll answer some of your questions.
Right, but I just want to know, why are they shooting and killing innocent people, blowing up hospitals, when people automatically know for a fact people are living as billionaires and these terrorists, if they're there,
I'm going to ask it. Let me answer that, Kim. So there's a few points, but let me finish. So Hamas went into Israel recently, as this part everybody knows. They killed 1,400 Israelis and raping women, killing babies. It was terrible things. So of course the Israelis have to act. So the point is, and then I'll answer your questions and we'll discuss it further. The point is that how could so many people be supporting Hamas, not just Palestine, again, it's a difference, but supporting Hamas, a total terrorist organization who's terrible, not interested in their own people. And I'll explain a little bit more and answer your questions, but how can so many people do that unless it's the media or the politicians that are misleading them because it's so misguided? So a few answers. One, there are lots of leaders in Palestine also. I mean, the three heads are living it up and billionaires in Qatar, but they have huge organizations in Palestine. Number two, Israel is not, for political reasons alone, they would not do that. They've been as ethical as they could be. Let me answer it. In terms of the attack, what did they do? First of all, they told Gaza, we want North Gaza, we want the citizens to evacuate because we're going to have to attack to get it.
Okay, Peter, you have 24 hours to leave your home right now before somebody blows you and your family and everybody up. You have 24 hours. You've done nothing wrong. You have just been living there peacefully, trying to avoid situations. You have 24. Is that nice? No.
It's not nice, but
it's wrong.
I can't believe you're arguing this, Kim. I can't believe you're arguing this, Kim. If Mexico... Hold on. If Canada or Mexico invaded the United States today and came in and killed the equivalent of tens of thousands of people, because they were a much smaller population, slaughtered babies in the United States and Minnesota or Texas, and they invaded us, we would attack them back. One.
They have
Number
been,
two,
according
let me
to the
finish,
media.
Kim. Number two,
According to
Israel-
the media, they have been. If you watch the news,
is
you haven't been watching the right news.
This is the first time on our show you're arguing sort of a crazy position. Let me finish. So the United States would attack, and we wouldn't. It's Israel, and people would say, "Why are you giving water and food to Canada if Canada attacked us or Mexico?" They're trying to be as humanitarian as they can.
You didn't read the
considering they have
Bible
to
very
wipe
much,
out-
did you?
You're interrupting me. Okay, the show's over. It's been fun. Sorry, folks. I'm not doing this
But
anymore.
Peter, you did.
It's been
you
fun.
think about
I'm
it.
not arguing anymore, Kim, because you're interrupting me and you have no
Trojan horse.
Well, this is
Trojan
why-
horse.
final
I
point.
read the
Sorry,
Bible.
folks. So this
Have
is
a
why
great
America
day.
is divided. Some people just think they know things. Kim usually knows everything. In this case, she's supporting Hamas. She's attacking Israel.
I'm not
There's no
supporting
idea.
Hamas. I'm not supporting Hamas, but I'm not supporting
Well,
Israel.
you're arguing with everything I'm saying, and you're not listening, and you're
because
not
we're a
listening.
divided house.
What? Okay. So I'm fed
Gotcha.
up. Sorry, folks. So we'll be back with
Stay
another panel
healthy.
discussion and hopefully a better one. This is the first time we've had such a breakdown, but this is, this happens sometimes.
Peter, this
Who has
happens
the
in our
positions?
country.
So,
Stay
what?
healthy and stay
Wealthy.
wealthy.
Okay. Sorry, folks.
We
We'll be
agree
back.
on that. Why
Have a good
sorry?
day.
That's
Thanks.
our country. Take
Okay,
care.
sign
We'll
off,
see you
Kim.
next
Thanks.
Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Oh, next Thursday we're taking a turkey break.
Yes, we
see
said
you
that
after
too.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. And everyone have a blessed, wonderful, beautiful holiday. God bless you.